Okay, I'm going to show you now how to make hot cross buns. My favorite recipe is the one on the UK Cookie Dough site. The one on the Aussie site is actually really good too, but just for some reason, we did a hot cross bun bake-off one day and we did 3 different recipes and this was the one we all liked best. So they are all pretty similar, but and there's gluten-free recipes you can try, and there's brioche hot cross buns. There's anyway, just type in hot cross buns into Cookie Dough and you'll see all the different options. They're all really good. So to make the dough, we're just going to whack all the ingredients in. First, we add some butter, and the scales come up when you need it to, but I have pre-weighed that butter. Perfect. And we're going to add some milk, which I haven't pre-weighed, so I need to watch the scales. And we want 300 mils of milk. As it nears there, as I get to about 250, I kind of slow down because I want to make sure I don't go over. And if you do go a little bit over, it doesn't actually matter too much. But because we are baking, you do want to stick to the recipe fairly well. If you're cooking a dinner type thing, it's not going to be the end of the world. But we're going to heat up that butter and the milk for 2 minutes at 40 degrees. So I just wanted to show you as well, now that we're heating up that milk and that butter, I wanted to show you something that I like to do when I'm cooking is I come here and press these 3 dots and I press recipe detail. And now I can look ahead and get out my next ingredient. So I've got 2 minutes to go out and get my flour, sugar, yeast, my spices, salt, egg, and whatever mixed fruit I'm going to be using. So this 2 minutes time can be productive in the kitchen. You can multitask. When you're ready to get back to the recipe, just press continue and you're back. So I'll get all those ingredients out. So now we're ready to add our next ingredients. The milk and the butter has heated up. So now it's asking us to add baker's flour. So the difference between baker's flour and plain flour is that it has more protein, more gluten. It's still made from wheat grain, but it's been grown at a different altitude or something like that. But yeah, if you only have plain flour, you can still give this recipe a go and other bread recipes. But if you have a chance to get baker's flour, you will notice a much better result in just a nice, softer, lighter bread. So if you're going to be doing a lot of baking, I recommend getting the baker's flour. You can get it in 5 kilo bags at the supermarket or Costco or fruit shops, Indian shops, like just wherever you can get big bags of it. So that's why I've got a big tub of baker's flour. And we're going to add some sugar. I'm just using raw sugar. You can use whatever. And the scales just make it so easy when adding ingredient. Just grab your tub right out of the pantry and pour it in. 2 teaspoons of yeast. Now, one tip is to keep your yeast in the freezer because it doesn't freeze like frozen. It's still very, able to be sprinkled, but it just keeps it active and makes sure that it will help your bread actually rise. If you have yeast that expires or goes bad, it's not going to help your bread rise. Yep, so now we're adding our spices. Cinnamon first, and I just use Ceylon cinnamon. Use whatever you've got. There's a difference between cassia and Ceylon, but yeah, if you care to know, you can Google that, but otherwise, just whatever cinnamon you've got is good. And mixed spice, which I make myself in the Thermomix. You can look up the recipe on Cookie Dough for mixed spice. I'll add it in the email that I sent from this class as well. And then I believe we want half a teaspoon of, get the right spoon of the nutmeg. And some recipes have a bit of clove in it as well. This recipe doesn't, but if you like cloves, just add a pinch of that in as well, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon. All the recipes are to your taste. So if you don't like a spice, don't add it in. And if you do, add it in. A teaspoon of salt. Don't be shy in the salt. It does help the flavor of the bread. It brings out flavors. I know if you've got a grinder, some people think they're putting in a whole teaspoon, but it is quite a decent amount of salt. And I just use, you can see I've milled my own. So it's kind of, I mill my own cooking salt out of rock salt, just so that I know that there's no additives in my cooking salt and it's really fine, which is good to disperse through the whole recipe. And an egg going in. A lot of sweet doughs have an egg in it. Different, it's usually in brioche and things like that, but any soft sweet bun, you want to have that egg. And I think that's everything. So we're going to mix these ingredients for 20 seconds on speed 4, and it'll just mix around. That's done. And now it is telling us to keep the measure cup in place because now we're going to be kneading the dough. So the recipe already brings up dough mode. You can see here the picture of the wheat, and all I need to do is turn the dial, the arms lock again, and we're kneading. So that will knead for 3 minutes. Just show you what it looks like when it's kneading. Yeah, just a really good strong push. And 3 minutes of kneading is good for a soft dough. Normal breads, we do 2 minutes. Pizza can even be 1.5 minutes, but the recipe will always tell you, you don't need to remember that. But it's, you know, the equivalent of half an hour of hand punching. So it's really good to let the machine do it for you, and the result is always really good. Okay, that is done. So the next step is to add, it says raisins and sultanas. My family really prefer cranberries. So that's what I'm adding instead. But yeah, by all means, use whatever dried fruit you are interested in using. I'm also going to skip the mixed peel. I love the mixed peel, but I'm the only one. So I won't add it in. Okay, so 140 grams of cranberries, and then I'll skip the peel. So now this is going to knead again. And one thing I'll point out is that while you're kneading in your Thermomix, you should stay close by because as you can see, it jumps around a little bit and it's usually very sturdy and it's going to stay right there. But if you've got a really heavy dough, what could happen is it can move on the bench and, you know, come towards the edge. So I would like, you know, if I was going to be not standing right here, if I was going to be a few meters away, I'd move it to the center of the bench a bit more so that I can move a bit. But really keep your eye on it, stay in the vicinity. Any other cooking in your Thermomix, you know, you can leave the house if you want, but kneading dough, or obviously blending something at a high speed, you want to stay close by. Yeah. Okay, so that's finished kneading. And now we're just going to, you can put this in a bowl, an oiled bowl for it to rise with a tea towel over the top. I'm going to be using the Thermomat. To get the dough out, I'm just tipping, like spinning the blades, and it all just, most of it comes out. If there's a bit more, you can just get your hands in it. We're going to use our hands anyway. Obviously you wash your hands, and then you're going to be baking the bread. So it's all hygienic. Just get out any of those other bits, being careful around the blades, obviously, because they're very sharp, Sullinger steel blades. And so what you can see here is our beautifully kneaded dough that's been kneading for a total of 4 minutes with those cranberries. So you just want to shape it into a ball. However much, I'm just kind of looking through to make sure the cranberries are really incorporated, and they very much are, so that's great. Okay, so I'm just going to put it in the center of my Thermomat. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, and just like wrap it however, and that's ready to put into a warm spot. We want to let it rise for, I usually do it for an hour, but let's see what the recipe says. Oh, it says 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, I forgot. It's been a little while since I've done hot cross buns. You really want it to double in size, and because it's such a big, and we want it to be really nice and soft. You could put it in the varoma with some water in your bowl, with the varoma on ferment mode. You've got ferment mode down the bottom of your modes if you've got a TM6, and that really helps rise dough. You could put it, you know, have the dishwasher on and have it on the bench on top of the dishwasher. You could fill your thermoserver with hot water and have it sitting on top. Some people put it in the oven or in the microwave, just somewhere incubated where it can stay really warm for a few hours. On a nice sunny day, by a window is good. So we'll see how we go today, and then after a few hours I'll come show you what we've got. Okay, it's been a few hours now, and I'm just unwrapping. It did explode a little bit out of the mat, so I had this section here, which is all good. So all I need to do now is divide into the 16 balls. I'm actually going to do 15 because in my tray I've got a rectangular tray where I do 5 times 3, whereas if you had a square tray it would be 4 by 4, I guess, which is why the recipe says 16. I'm just going to make sure I get all that dough, which is everywhere on my mat. So now, if you were going to be doing choc chips instead of the fruit, now would be the time to add in the choc chips just by hand, because if you did it earlier, the choc chips would have melted in because the dough was very warm before rising and, you know, kneading and everything. So it was quite warm, and now you'd be mushing the chocolate around everywhere. So now if you're doing choc chips is the time. To divide the dough, that looks good. I usually just break it in half and half and half. You can just use your hands or your spatula. If you want them perfect, you could weigh this dough and divide it by the amount of rolls you're going to make, so each one is the exact same weight, and you'd weigh each one. I'm not bothering with that. That's not my style. So yeah, I'm just going to half and half. Okay. So, and then to roll them, I'm pretty rustic. I'll show you what I do anyway. Yeah, again. To get 15 balls. Oh, no, that one's a bit small. And then we are going to rise this again on the tray for another hour before we bake them. So lots of rising time in this dough, which is why it ends up being such a beautiful soft bun in the end. Yeah, so got our balls. To roll them, I mean, you can just literally roll them in between your hands, place it on the mat, and you're done. If you want to make it a perfect top, there is a mushroom technique some people do where you stretch with your thumbs and then gather it underneath. So underneath it's looking very pinched, but on top it's a perfect bun. Whatever technique you do, I'm just going to roll them fairly roughly. And then on your tray, you can place them apart from each other. If you do them very apart, they're going to end up like dinner rolls that are separate. I like to have them kind of close to each other so that they pull apart at the end. So you'll see that after I've baked them. But yeah, I'll keep going with that and pause the recording. Okay. The last thing I do is just push them down. That's not in the recipe, it's just my own thing because I like them to end up touching each other, and then they puff back up again as they rise. So that's it. Is set to rise for another hour, just like that. And they're looking very low round, more like scones probably at the moment. But once they rise again and then they rise again in the oven, they'll puff up like buns. So now these have almost been rising for an hour, so it's time to put the oven on, which I've done, to 210. Very gently take the plastic off that you were covering little buns with, and they're looking very nice, as you can see there. So the next step is to place a bowl on top of the lid because we're going to make the piping. So we want 40 grams of baker's flour. I've just got some in a smaller tub that I take to my Thermomix. This one you can do in the Thermomix, but it's so easy to just mix by hand. I've done it both ways. I'm following the recipe today, but sometimes I just let the Thermomix do it. But honestly, it's just a quick mix by hand, so that it's easy. So, and some sugar going in. And the last thing is some water. I want 40 grams of water. And every time you press next, that scale just goes back down to 0, making it really easy to weigh in your ingredients. Now, if you set a piping bag up in a glass, it's nice and easy to pour into. So that's what I've done there. And I just use the Thermomix piping bag. They sell this one that comes with so many nozzles. It's really good. Or they sell disposable ones that you can just use once and throw away. So with those ones, you snip the corner and you can still put in the nozzle of choice if you've already got nozzles. That's easy for really messy things, or if you're needing to have multiple piping bags at once. This set comes with a 2, so if you need 2, but if you need any more, the disposable ones are really handy. Okay, so you're just mixing into a paste, which I think I've got pretty well. There's a few lumps, but that doesn't matter too much. Okay, so pouring in my piping bag. And I'm just going to do lines across the top. And I know you don't always have to draw crosses on your hot cross buns. You could do, if you've got little kids, sometimes it's fun to do initials of their names or draw little stars or flowers or whatever's fun for them. I will do crosses today. Oh, it's starting to come out. So, as I said, I just draw lines. So it's, I don't know if you can see, but a matter of 3 long lines across. such a small amount of paste in the piping bags. It's different to doing normal icing. And obviously, if you don't need them to look good, you don't have to put the crosses on. It's, you know, it's the traditional thing to have hot cross buns. But if you just want the taste, if you just want them to taste good, you can skip this step. I think they look pretty nice with the crosses. Okay, almost done. I know this isn't very interesting to watch, but I want to make sure I show novices how to do the whole process. Hopefully it's been easy today. If anyone has any questions about it, I'm very happy for you to contact me. I'll be sending out an email, so you'll have my details, my phone number and email. Okay, so with any leftover piping that you have, you can go back and, I don't know, do a better job of any of the edges, but I'm pretty happy with what we've got. If you've made any thin parts, you could go over it, but yeah, I'm happy with my crosses there. So now these just need to go in an oven, and oh, I better follow the recipe. I think it's 15 minutes. 20 minutes, 210 degrees. So I'll put them in the oven and show you what we have at the end, and then we're going to put a glaze on the top. So while they're in the oven, I'm going to make the glaze. This glaze is sugar, brown sugar, marmalade and milk. There is a simpler glaze you can do if you just want to do a basic sugar glaze, which is equal parts sugar to water. So 2 tablespoons each, and then you cook it at 100 degrees on speed 2 for a minute, and then you've got a basic sugar glaze you can use. This one's a little bit fancier. We're going to follow the recipe, so you can see the different result of that. And I think this sugar glaze, doing a sugar glaze, whichever one you do, really, you know, makes it a bit better than the ones you can buy in the store. The whole product is way better than the ones you buy in the store. There's actually no comparing, but the glaze really just sends it over the edge. So yep, some brown sugar and now some milk. Oh, went a little bit over on the milk. It's okay. And a tablespoon of marmalade. A decent tablespoon, whatever. And then that just cooks for a minute and it's ready. So here we have our buns now, fresh out of the oven, looking beautiful, and the glaze is ready to go on. So that you just put it on with a brush. So one thing I was going to say was, if you wanted to have these on Easter Sunday morning without having to get up before dawn to do this whole process, you can have them done the first step, and then even the second step. Once you've formed them into balls, you know how we set that aside to rise for another hour just on the bench before we put the crosses on. Once they're formed, instead of leaving them on the bench for an hour, you could just cover them loosely and put them in the fridge to do that final rise in the fridge overnight. And then in the morning, turn on your oven, bring them out of the fridge so they're sitting on the bench while the oven preheats, and that's when you can put on the crosses and get it in the oven for 20 minutes. You know, so Easter Sunday morning before breakfast, you really only need 20 minutes plus however long it takes for your oven to preheat. So maybe 40 minutes, and then breakfast will be ready because you've done the work the night before. And that morning, there's no work to be done. You're just putting it in the oven and waiting. So, yeah, that's what I do. Easter Saturday afternoon, I get them ready, and then we bake them Easter Sunday morning. It's the same kind of thing I do if we want cinnamon rolls for breakfast for Father's Day or whatever it is, where you can get the dough ready ahead of time and just have it in the fridge so that in the morning all you have to do is bake it. I have put a lot of glaze on. This made more glaze than what we needed, so I'm just being extra generous. But these buns are done and they smell amazing. They are just amazing to eat fresh out of the oven. I'm going to break one open to show you the inside. They're a little bit too hot to touch at the moment, but I'll just do it anyway and hopefully don't burn my fingers. But yeah, it looks amazing. I've still got a little bit of glaze, the tiniest amount. You don't have to use it all, but okay, let's see if I'm going to burn my fingers if I do this. So see how they're all just formed together? That's how I like my buns, but I'm going to use my spatula to help me. But if you let it cool a bit, you can just grab your hand and just pull it open. Oh, yeah. It looks so good. Oh yeah, I can't really touch it, it's too hot, but I want to show you the inside that I've just pulled apart from the other bun. On the, oh, that's the corner edge. Yeah, there you go. Super soft, you know, very light, soft, airy on the inside, crispy on the outside with that glaze on top that's nice and sticky now. Beautiful, fresh to eat, ready to go. So enjoy.